Donc, ça me permet de présenter le prochain intervenant, qui est suisse, qui n'a pas pu venir à Stockholm, mais qui a voulu faire une vidéo qui va vous donner une revue du modèle. Alors, on a eu le modèle politique, on va avoir le modèle médical. Le système de santé suisse est parmi les meilleurs au monde, dans les 3 premiers dans le monde, mais aussi le plus cher au monde. Et on a toujours cette image idéale de la Suisse. Détrompez-vous. C'est pas tout à fait comme ça, c'est cosmétique. Il y a aussi des choses qui vont pas en Suisse. Et donc, Christian Zurcher, qui est médecin, qui est installé, a créé, enfin ça fait un moment qu'il y est, une association qui s'appelle Santé Suisse. Il la préside et c'est un des rares que j'ai rencontré très vite dans l'année 2019 avec le Covid et qui a fait une déclaration parlementaire. En Suisse, on aime le consensus. Et lui, il est allé au front avec d'autres médecins. Il a parlé, il a une déclaration parlementaire qui est sur le site web. C'était un des rares avec le professeur Bédage Stadler qui dénonçait le PCR qui marchait pas, qui dénonçait les mesures injustifiées, disproportionnées de la Suisse et que l'immunité était là. Et il parlait d'immunité. Voilà. Donc, si vous voulez, il est très intéressant. Il nous a fait une vidéo qu'on va vous passer maintenant, 20-25 minutes, pour vous décrire le système de santé suisse et qu'est-ce qui va, et son analyse. Merci.
Hello everybody, I'm Christian Zurcher from Switzerland, a medical doctor specialized in pain management and general medicine. I'm happy being able to share some thoughts with you and considerations. About my personal experiences, it started in February early of this year, thanks to friends of mine and external experts like Dr. Wodarg, Wolfgang. He was former expert and delegate of the European Community for Epidemiologic Questions. He was the person who was analyzing SARS-1, for example, and porcupine flu, MERS, and the bird flu as well. From him, I learned that this coronavirus of 2020 very probably was nothing special about. He showed to the public on YouTube first that the coronavirus was nothing special and present in all the years before. Voila. And that helped already to see the whole spectrum in another light. Due to friends of mine, I was aware of very in the early stage of therapeutic possibilities, like the solution of chloride dioxide. I will come back to that further. In this sense, I informed my patients as first point in March. I was responsible for the so-called Corona Emergency Street, responsible for this service were the private doctors of the district. I tried to make some propositions like prevention possibilities, therapies to the authorities. That was a second part of my work. Later on, I had contacts with representatives of the government, the task force, the chief of task force for the corona aspect 2020, before cameras, and later on some local and national TV sequences and radio presence. I tried always to explain, to calm down the population, explain that Corona 2020 was not really new, that it was not more dangerous than the flu, that we had big, huge possibilities of prevention and therapeutic possibilities. So it was in contrast to the official meaning, but it was very good for my patients and for a lot of other people that took up some more detailed information that we couldn't have from the official networks at this time. Now, interesting, very good news I can bring you from Switzerland, and directly I hope it will have some worldwide side effects, comes from last Friday. And that may be typically Swiss, making part of the world, as long as we're saying must be like that, and maybe say no when it is possible. And we saw that last Friday, the Medical Assessment Institute of Switzerland said no to the new vaccines to Switzerland. So that was a really big surprise. We won't have the vaccine for quite a time in Switzerland. That is really revolutionary and was the biggest. It was my Christmas present. A big new. Typically Swiss, maybe the circumstances of legislation. As you know, Swiss get quite a few possibilities for the parliament to decide, and as well for the population sometimes to say no. We had the proposal of the Swiss government in early June to prolong the emergency law for other 3 years without changements. And that was really an emergency, because that would not done us very good in that sense. So Parliament decided in the autumn, could decide whether it would accept the law proposition, the changements, and they said yes in the basics. That explains the following development, but no to a lot of other things. And that was a big chance for Switzerland, making it much more difficult to get lockdowns in every aspect of our lives. That's maybe a typical Swiss point. I would like to remember the definition of health of the World Health Organization that has 4 components. We're speaking about the bio, psychosocial, spiritual model. So health is much more than we usually focus on, especially in these days. Health means much more than that. Corona 2020, for me, a phenomenon with a lot of aspects. So patients, if we apply the definition of WHO, are not only our individual patients in our practice, our neighbors, our friends, our families. No, it's much more than that. And that's the big question: what happened? What happened to all our other aspects of health? Assessments, we have heard a lot about it, especially the PCR test, and now the newest, the quick antigen test, other possibilities of diagnosis that all turns around the so-called coronavirus of this year. We know more and more that these aspects are very problematic, that there are a lot of faults in it. We got planes now in Europe through WODARC, and former scientific officer Ilden of Pfizer himself, that really question with 10 points the correctness of the PCR test. If we know, like the World Health Organization declared this October 5th, that the coronavirus is much less dangerous than we thought at the beginning of this year, that it corresponded light to the middle important flu with a mortality of 0.25, for example. Stanford gave the number of 0.28. Then logic would mean that we could really stop all lockdowns measurements, all this severity, hardness in governmental decisions. We could really come back to closeness, maybe, probably take away the mask as well, as a huge symbol of this disease and peritonitis. That could be the logical consequences if we could accept the facts that we are given nowadays. But as you know, that's not really the case. We're accelerating still in more activity, in a hyperactivity, in a possible burnout of our countries, maybe worldwide, with big losses in economic, in health, in social and psychological well-being. So we could look to that in a medical way and, pardon, from the medical point of view, it's quite comparable with mass psychosis. That diagnosis exists from a long time ago, and we can actually really develop a lot of parallels to this diagnosis. So it may be very difficult to get out of this trend. The question is, then, I'm getting back with the therapists, how we can get out of this psychosis. That will need quite patience and good positive measures in a sort tenderness with everybody, even towards the people that are doing wrong, who are hurting and making a lot of secondary damage to our societies. Even then, we have to develop a positive way of seeing and communication. Influences we saw this year are quite evident. There has been war scenarios in Switzerland as well. We changed into another modus. Last time we used it was in the Second World War. So a lot changed with a lot of consequences. The government, the communication style, we got a lot of applications that we normally don't see. We lost with instances, with the mask, a lot of our well-being. There were huge changements. How comes that? I think, in a way, it's originally a big accident, triggered by digital possibilities. Originally, a real fearful reaction to news of China, very understandable. But then we couldn't get to the calming information, and it took its way as we saw it later. We know, unfortunately, that there was not only goodwill, there was also will of power, of governmental will. We know that there are big interests in medias. We saw that there was a lot of money spent and invested in medias in this time, for one of the first times in these dimensions. We saw that the language changed. For example, the word case, a corona case, COVID case, bases already on a sickness of a big danger. Actually, if we count the cases, normally it's just positive testing. So we had a lot of basic changes in language for the disadvantage of the former situation, for the disadvantage of calmness, and for the benefit of fear, for action, for hyperactivity, overcharging, and finally, maybe we will be very tired of all and lose a lot of our powers and possibilities. Communication was clear. It was not a communication of discussion. I call it communication one of our governmental system and the medias. It was one way, and we lived for a long time again real censoration on the medias in our countries. We still have it, and I personally really lived it quite a few times, so that it really happens. And that's really a huge disadvantage, malinvestation of the governmental powers and the power of the medias. We lost our liberties and the possibility to discuss and see other points as well. What the future need after psychological specialist is another sort of communication. Especially in the position of the minority, there is no alternative to positive communications. So we really need to be polite in our formulation. We need to understand the other side, even if it's very difficult for us what happens. We have to communicate in a calm way, in a positive way. There's no place for criticism in direct contact. Criticism creates distance. There is no listening with criticism, neither with affects like crying, like our fury that we will certainly feel in some moments. What we can do is explain our feelings, but not live them, and it's not really easy. It's a big, huge task that we have to explain, to give information in an acceptable way. And I wish us very good luck. It will not be easy, but it's possible. Other point, I really in March already informed my patients for the start that in this unsecure situation we have big, easy ways, possibilities of prevention to make us strong, to not to fall sick. And I would like just to sum this in an easy way. We saw, and it's common knowledge in science, in medicine especially, for a lot of years already, that we need sleep. Sleep is one of the most important factors for a good immune system. We need pleasure. We don't really. We know that stress makes the contrary, makes us sick. And we saw, and we know since a lot of years already, that vitamin D3 is very useful. It's useful in the level of breast diseases, lung diseases, and it helps against infections. The developments are much shorter, less strong. Vitamin D3, 2,000 units a day, for example, are really helping. If we keep on with a healthy lifestyle, healthy nutrition, it will really help us to get through this year without big problems. We will even be in measure to be better than in 2019. Very important, the prevention possibilities. Then therapies. It was early known, we spoke about hydroxychloroquine. That has been forbidden first in Switzerland, lately very, in a still way, accepted again. Is very efficient, especially when combined with zinc and clarithromycin. There are a few studies in the US states that show that clearly. We know that may even explain maybe the difference with mortality between Germany and France. Germans often use a hydroxychloroquine with severe viral disease. We have knowledge now that all disinfectant substance, it's a gas actually, in solution, so the solution of chloride dioxide has a great impact on viral infections. It really disinfects our body, the cavities, but not only, it's really by perfusions and per oral, there is effective, big success in treating COVID patients. That has been shown with lately in August and publicly now on American TV chains showed clearly that chloride dioxide may be the most efficient, less problematic substance to battle against virus, for example. It does not only disinfect against the virus, it's most efficient against bacteria and fungus as well. It's the most common disinfectant system worldwide for purification of open drinking water. It's unproblematic. It's used in every country of the world since decennies. So it's been really a big pleasure, a huge work for now an association of 22 Hispanic-speaking countries with the expert and the person that developed the knowledge of chloride dioxide, Andreas Kalker, an Austrian living in Switzerland, to make studies in Hispanic-speaking countries this summer. About 15,000 patients with severe COVID disease could be restored at Integrum, completely healed within 5 to 10 days with SCD. So at the cost of $5. That has been proved in a very astonishing, very efficient way. We could take this theme up. We should help this group of countries to make that common knowledge. Very interesting. We have aspects of ivermectin, dexamethasone, as well as every very efficient calming agents. So actually we could really give the information that therapy is not so difficult to do. We just should communicate that and apply. And that's what still is missing. There is not enough knowledge in the medical world and with the patients as well, the common population, that we really have good possibilities to treat severe viral infection as well, and especially for prevention. So what I propose is we should do all together, like in marketing, everybody after his possibilities. We had to make priorities and go forwards together. We should develop empowerment as well, keep contact with people responsible and in power, communicate in a positive way, giving a lot of information working with repetitions, keeping our energies, our calm, keeping our fitness, and especially hope. So in that sense, I wish us all the best. If there are questions, I can give you links as well to the touched subjects by our website of EPSE. So, thanks you for listening. Bye-bye.
Okay, well, thank you. You saw Dr. Zurcher from the Swiss Health Association, who's a medical doctor and a militant, and you can see that the Swiss health system has a lot of holes in the system, and we are consortiums that are building up more and more lawyers and associations of lawyers and medical doctors who start to speak out up, but very slowly.